Hi, this is Tony Pigg. Welcome to another edition of the Inside Track. Tonight, Lisa Robinson's guests are the members of the Police, Stewart Copeland, Andy Summers, and Sting. You'll hear what makes them unique as a group and as people. And of course, you'll hear lots of great Police music, from Roxanne to Spirits in the Material World. The Inside Track is brought to you by Budweiser. For all you do, this Bud's for you.
Bud's for you, for being on the job and working hard all day. So here's to you, here's to you. You know it isn't only what you say, it's what you do. So here's to you, for all you do. The king of beers is coming through. For all you do, this Bud's for you.
Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis.
Budweiser.
Hi, this is Lisa Robinson. I visited all three members of the Police at their homes in England, away from the madness of rock and roll tours, hotels, and backstage. Drummer Stewart Copeland invited me to his farm in the English countryside, where he has several horses and acres of land. After a big Sunday English lunch, we sat down to talk about the special musical chemistry that exists in the Police.
I really don't know when the first inkling of major success was. It seemed as if, when I look back and try and remember what on earth kept us together, I seem to remember assuming that we were just around the corner from the big slam from the first day we got together. I think every group thinks that. Every group imagines when they have a good day's rehearsal, they think, boy, we're incredible. Oh, we're much better than Talking Heads or Elvis Presley or whoever it is that they reckon they're much better than, you know. And we were just like every other group in that respect.
Why, however, do you think that the Police broke through in such a tremendous international way?
There's so many different things, and to list them for you sounds like bragging, unfortunately. I've had this question before.
Brag.
And the only way of answering that question is to say, oh, well, it's because our music is so good, because the songs are so good, because we're so handsome, and all that stuff. I mean, you know,
No.
you're supposed to say that,
No,
not
no.
me.
But there's still something more than that. I mean, we're talking about
yes.
playing in India and Egypt and America and England and everywhere, just being such a massively successful group. Why?
It's all within the oneness.
I beg your pardon?
Would you like a lecture on kinetic ritual?
Oh, wait a minute, I'm not sure about that. No, I'm serious. I mean, you must have thought about this.
Of course I've thought about it. Something that amazes me all the time, just with drumming. The thing that I do for a living that got me this house and the horses and all the rest of it, is something that I find very easy to do. It's so easy and so pleasurable that I really shouldn't be paid this much to do it in a way. I should be doing this as a hobby because I enjoy it so much. For some reason, it comes very easily to me, and for this I'm thankful.
And you think it's the same with the other members of the group in terms of the coming together?
In terms of the three of us and our talents that come easily to us, we didn't sit down and figure out what works on the airwaves and do it. We did quite the reverse. We forgot about the media. We forgot about the music industry. We just concentrated on following our own instincts. That was the reason why we had the low budget and everything, so that we could follow our own instincts, and if it only sold a few thousand records, we wouldn't be in debt. We could take some chances. So we followed our instincts, and we took some chances. And it turned out, that's what everyone wants to hear.
You did say that from the beginning the music was uncompromising and you played what you wanted to and you made the music that you wanted to make, but that's not really true, is it? In the beginning, didn't you have to sort of put yourself in a situation where you played punk-type songs in punk-type clubs and it wasn't something that you really were all that comfortable with?
Well, I was comfortable with it. Sting and Andy were not. The punk music, this is something else I have to own up to, is that I am a closet heavy metal freak. Give me an E chord and an A chord flat out through a Marshall amplifier any time. It makes the hackles on the back of my neck stand up. I mean, it's a base human response. It's sort of like primitive. punk. We played punk because I called these guys up and formed a group that was going to play in the punk clubs. And as far as I was concerned, it was perfectly natural to me. I wrote all these songs that could be called punk songs. And it was dunka 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 dunka, and I loved all that stuff. And this was true artistic expression for me.
Well, it's like the Ramones, that kind of music?
Well, sort of like, not really. No, we had our own brand of it. Even when we were doing that, it was our own kind of concoction. It didn't sound like any of the other groups. It didn't really sound all that good either, but it didn't sound like any of the other groups. And the reason it didn't sound all that good is because I didn't know how to write songs at the time. I was the baby of the Guten Curved Air, and I didn't know how to write songs. And Sting was still, his songwriting was still into jazz opus type material. And it hadn't occurred to him to write 3-minute songs. And yet, at that point, he did later. And that's when we started playing real music.
Well, you know, Led Zeppelin and the Stones and other people had done various musical experiments with reggae. Why do you think the Police is the group that's really credited with bringing reggae to the attention of so many people?
Well, there's something different that we did. Those groups, when they experimented with it, they experimented with recreating that Kingston sound. Oobla dee, oobla da, and so on. They actually did it exactly the way it was, the way they heard it. It's like the blues. I mean, a blues guitarist won't play anything that isn't a blues lick because it's not the blues. And he has no interest in expanding the blues. He's interested in playing the blues as played by the blues players who have gone before. And the same is true of reggae. They don't want to change it or anything like that. They want to just play it the way it is because it's a religious statement. But that's not our interest. Our interest is music, and they had an interesting rhythm which we wanted to use, and so we used it, and we changed it, and did our own thing with it.
I'll be back to talk to Stewart about how the Police choose their songs.
This buzz for you for being on the job and working hard all day. So here's to you. You know there's no one else who does it quite the way you do. For all you do, this buzz for you. Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis.
I'm Lisa Robinson, back with Stewart Copeland on the Inside Track. What about these well-publicized fights among the members of the band?
Dog fights. I don't know what the problems are. I mean, the problems are that it's like brothers and sisters probably treat each other worse than total strangers. You know, when your brother or your little sister steals your candy bar, you scream and shout at him, and you can like punch him and give him a black eye over a candy bar. Whereas with a perfect stranger, you would be very polite and say, "Oh, please, do have this candy bar." And it's the same with members of a group. All the normal rules of etiquette, dealing with people, and manners and so on go out the window. We treat each other on a primal level, which involves a lot of pushing and shoving. Sometimes decisions are made as, I'm playing something there, and now he's playing something there. I don't care if it's better than what I'm playing. I'm going to get off the stage and tell him not to play it. So that's what we have a battle about. And the battle is about, Sting, don't you think that thing is terrible, that guitar thing? Isn't that the worst thing you've ever heard? Yeah, Sting, yeah. And so on and so forth. It's all garbage like that, just little details. And they're worth fighting about.
What about in the studio? Is it a real problem that Sting songs are the ones that generally get recorded? Do you feel like you and Andy sort of have token songs on the album at this point?
Yes, I do. I think that I have written some very good songs that I'm very proud of, and that I occasionally come up with good songs. But on the whole, writing songs is not one of those things that comes very easily to me, like drumming does. I can do it, and I can search around and eventually end up there. It's like laying golden eggs. You know, like every musician is looking around, trying to find where the inspiration comes from, and I'm just like all the rest. Sting, on the other hand, has this natural ability to just whistle a tune and turn it into a song. It's a talent that flows naturally. He does put a lot of sweat into it and toil over his songwriting. But I mean, it's there. The basic ingredients are there, the intuition, the inspiration. And so there's the main songs are Sting's songs. I'll show up to the studio with my 9 songs and only really expect 2 or 3 of them to really be up to the standard of Sting's songs. And that's generally about what happens to the record.
General scratches his belly and thinks.
Didn't you tell me you worked as tour manager or road manager?
Oh yes,
for
I've
Vers-
done everything else in the music business. I've been a DJ, I was a journalist, I've been a producer, tour manager, roadie, you name it, and I've done it.
You and your 2 brothers have sort of put yourselves in a very unusual place in the music business. You know, Miles is the manager of the Police and the head of a record label with other successful bands on it. Ian is an extremely successful booking agent. It's like the
We
three
got a
of you-
Billboard award, the 3 of us, the 3 brothers, for our contribution to the music industry. For the 3 brothers to get an award, as the Copeland brothers, for our contribution by Billboard, which is a pretty serious trade publication, was quite cool.
Did you all just sort of fall into this, or
Yeah, I think Miles led the way. Well, maybe I did because I was playing music. Maybe Ian did because he was interested in music. Who knows?
how do your parents feel?
But Ian was the first agent. Ian got me into my first band. And Miles was my first manager. How
Did
do my
he-
parents feel about it?
Yeah.
Oh, they're knocked out. My father was a jazz trumpet player. He just says, "Look, boy, why don't you just get some of these brass players and get yourself a real band and play some real music? I mean, just for experiment. I mean, I know you make lots of money with this pop group and everything, but why don't you get some real good musicians?" And I say, "Dad, I am playing with the top musicians in the world, and your jazz players couldn't keep up with these guys." And so it goes back and forth. But then again, you know,
Are you an organizer within the Police?
I would say so, yeah. A motivator. A let's do a sound check, eh, chaps? So's Andy.
So you mean, therefore, the only one who isn't by process of elimination is Sting?
Well, sort of, yeah. Well, what Sting does is something very different and very much more important, which is, here, chaps, here's a song.
When we return, I'll be speaking with Andy Summers of the Police. This is Lisa Robinson. I've known guitarist Andy Summers for years. Since playing with the Soft Machine and a variety of other musicians throughout the 1970s, Andy's had years of struggle before finally making it big with the Police. As he and I talked in the sunny, high-ceilinged kitchen of his Putney home, I asked Andy how special this success was for him.
I do enjoy all the attention. Yeah, I think anybody really who wants to be a performer or be up on stage in front of a lot of people also has the same thing in their nature that makes them, enjoy attention in daily life as well. It's part of it in a sense. If you're in a group that is as high profile as the Police, anytime you're outside of your hotel room or home, you're on. I don't mind it. In other words, I'm not a person that really can't handle it and has to go away and hide. I don't feel like that about it. There are things about being very successful and being high profile that have drawbacks. It does change your life. My life's, and myself, I've changed considerably, I think, in the last 3 years. I think we probably all have. It's a sort of a paradoxical situation. On one hand, I feel like I love this, it's great being successful and all that. I think we probably all feel the same way because it's so intense. And on the other hand, I sometimes hope for the day when it will all be over and I can get on with resuming a normal life or get on with something, because it's sort of being the Police and doing this, it sort of gets in the way of things as well, because it is so demanding. One's whole life becomes bound up in it, and you have to make huge efforts to construct a life outside it. It's like having a family or marriage with all the disadvantages as well. The things that change you, I suppose, is having a lot more money than one ever expected, having people running around after you all the time, having everything done for you, traveling around the world, like going through so many relationships. I mean, I sound like I'm bemoaning my fate. Actually, I enjoy it. I've enjoyed the changes it's put me through. I feel tougher, maybe, than I used to be. I don't think I've lost any vulnerability that I hope that I still have and have always had, but I feel less attached to things. Yeah, I think that's the way I put it.
Called you so many times today. And you.
Are there problems in terms of recording mostly Sting songs? Do you and Stewart feel that you want more of your songs on Police albums?
Sure.
Well, how does that usually get resolved?
We do all Sting songs.
Why? I mean, do you think
No,
they're better for the Police?
Well, I guess, well, look, I am a fan of Sting's songs. I think he writes great songs. And I actually, as a musician, you know, enjoy playing them, you know, whether he'd written them or whether somebody else had written them. They're good songs. As a musician, they're good to play. And I enjoy working on them and personalizing the guitar parts so that I feel that I've contributed and the song to some extent becomes mine as well. We make it sound like the Police, and I play the guitar, and it has to sound like the guitar sounds in the Police. We all bring our material in the studio and we work it out. And I mean, the way it's worked the last couple of albums, we've all had our own demo tapes and we play through them, and then we start working on stuff. And at the end of recording most of the material, we have to put the album together, and that's when we try and be objective and put together the album that sounds best regardless of who's written the material. We are aware of trying to constantly evolve our sounds. Early on in our career, we were very fortunate in finding a fairly original style for a three-piece, and we've been sort of defining it more and more and making it clearer as time has gone on, I think. But at the same time, one is, as we're defining it, it's sort of changing and moving forward.
Well, Ghost in the Machine really seemed to be a big step forward, didn't it, from the last one, or did you not think of it that way? I mean, did it just seem a natural progression?
It's a move forward into, if you compare it with the first album. You know, I can see the change over 4 albums, but like being so constantly in it, playing with this group all the time, you know, it's just how we're changing, and like as each one goes off and maybe gets interested in other kinds of music for a while, or plays in a different style, or, you know, on his own, and then comes back, and then we play every day on tour and sound checks, and we just jam, and all these things start to come out, and it's all these little inputs that keep coming in that gradually change the way we play together as a group. I mean, I think we're actually getting better. We're all getting better at doing what we do, because constantly playing in front of people and being in a group, you get better as a musician.
I don't wanna spend the rest of my life.
Are you philosophical about the future of the band? You were talking about groups like Pink Floyd and the Stones and Genesis, and bands that have been together for a very long time.
I would love to think, ideally, the band could go on like those bands that you've mentioned and have a long career, because, and the reason for me saying that is because I enjoy working with Sting and Stewart, you know, and that's what it really comes down to. They're great musicians. I like to play with them, and I think that we are a great group. We work well together as musicians. But on the other side of the coin, I guess I'm fatalistic, because I think when it gets to sort of mega stardom and mega bucks and big arenas and all that and everything, and people get a little crazy. I guess if the band did break up, or does break up eventually, you know, maybe before its time, I think I'll just be fatalistic about it, and I'm not going to get all screwed up about it, because it's been great, you know. It was a fantastic time in my life and charge. I mean, I'm sounding like the band's ended. It hasn't, people, no.
Well, now, wait a minute. It has reached mega stardom and mega bucks and big arenas.
Yeah.
Who's gotten crazy?
Well, I think people around us get a little wacky, you know. This is true. I think the people who stayed the sanest, or who have stayed seemingly, have kept their feet on the ground of the group.
Do you think you're the most level-headed of the three of you in the group?
No. I think Sting has probably got the cool. I don't know, really. God, that's hard.
Well, you've been through more. I mean, you've been more prepared for this, actually, haven't you?
I don't know how you can prepare for it, really.
Really?
How can you?
Well, you certainly worked with a lot of musicians.
No, I don't
You've
think
seen
it's
a
like
lot
that.
thrown
You know,
down.
the way I am is the way I am. And I think if I'd been 18 years old, this had been happening, it probably would have been harder. But I think it goes back farther than that. I think it's to do with the way you're brought up and your parents and the way you are as a person. And I think it's the same with Sting and Stewart, really. You know, none of us are like crazy drug fiends or that kind of stuff. I think the guys in the group will all come out of it okay, and I think it's that's just sustained us as long as we have, and will be the one thing that keeps us going.
I'll be back to talk to Andy about the early days of the Police and to ask him about those rumors of a master plan.
This spot's for you. There's no one else who does it quite the way you do. So here's to you. For all you do, you know the king of fears is coming through. Coming through. This spot's for you for being on the job and working hard all day. Working hard all day. This spot's for you. This one's for you. There's no one else who does it quite the way you do. For all you do. This one's for you. Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis. This one's for you.
We're back with Andy Summers on the Inside Track. Was all of that stuff that you hear about the Police, this whole sort of myth about the master plan, is that just in retrospect, or has that been blown out of proportion?
I find that myth a bit annoying, because it is a myth. It makes us sound like young Nazis. You can't possibly connect with an audience and have all that unless it's natural. I mean, the point is, the music was there, the song was there, and the talent was there, and the ability to. We could do it. We were a good group. You can't contrive all those things. I mean, it's one of those magic things when the three divergent people come together and make music that works, and that's what happened with us. It wasn't. You can't possibly contrive this sort of success. For us, the timing was so great. We came along at the right time, and we had the right attitude and the right space and time, like coming to America and just touring, never ever headlining. I mean, we had certain policies that we'd always adhered to.
Never headlining, you mean
Sorry,
headlining?
I'm sorry.
You mean never
around.
opening?
Never
right.
supporting or
Right.
opening for anybody. We would never do that in America, and that was a policy that worked for us. And not getting an advance from the record company, all this kind of thing. Yeah, which it also felt right to do that. We just don't make huge master plans. We make decisions between us, and we discuss with Miles, our manager. I mean, he's always been sort of like one of the group in terms of being very close to the group, and we talk about this, that. In the early days, he was fairly involved. Like he'd come in the studio and listen to the stuff and comment upon it, and he helped us when we were in that sort of birth period of, things were starting to gel musically. And I think Miles contributed in some ways by making us seek even harder lines in our musical direction, and he was right.
You feel more like you're sort of in this larger tradition of being a musician than just a guitarist in a pop band.
Yeah, I do, yeah. I mean, I love the guitar as an instrument. I actually really enjoy playing. I like to sit down at home and just play the guitar, and I would like it to be a part of my life probably always. I don't think it's the only thing I'll ever do. I'm a person, I think there are musicians that are much more, I don't know if dedicated is the right word, but they're much more, they would only play the guitar and they'll never ever think about anything else. I'm a person that has a lot of interests in all kinds of areas, and a lot of things interest me, and I like to do lots of things, not only play the guitar.
On stage, how do you, I would imagine it would be almost easy to slip into that kind of guitar hero pose. I mean, but it's something that you find embarrassing, yes?
I don't want to be, I think I would find it restrictive to be pinned down as my identity totally with the public as a guitar hero.
You still can do all that stuff, though,
I can
can't
do it
you?
all,
I mean, you
yeah. I've been trying to do it for years and I've done it, yeah. It all seems pointless to me at the moment. It's not the kind of music I'm interested in. And the sort of thing I'm doing with Robert Fripp is miles from that sort of thing. So anyway, I think there are so many people doing it, and people do it better than I can. So I'm not interested in competing in that area. I'm into other things.
What is it that you're doing with Fripp that, I mean, is it something obviously you felt that you couldn't do with the Police, so it was another extension of your musical interest?
Yeah, well, it is purely instrumental music. It expresses different musical ideas, really. I mean, we're not playing pop songs. It's more abstract, I suppose. It's like pure music, as opposed to like putting a song over with lyrics and telling a story. I mean, this is instrumental music that creates mood, atmospheres, and is interesting from the purely musical point of view, the kind of things we're playing. And a lot of it is really accessible music, I think. And yeah, it's more, in some ways, I suppose, playing with another guitar player, playing some of these things, it's more challenging sometimes than some of the things I do with the Police. And it's new, you know, for me at this time. I don't know if it'll ever become like Pat, where I get bored with it or anything. But if you play in a situation, you get into a style, you have to work harder at it sometimes to make it be constantly challenging. Well, moving into a new situation like this, it is challenging right away, because you have to, you know, we're doing it professionally, we're playing in front of people, and it's got to be really good.
This is Lisa Robinson on the Inside Track. Police lead singer Sting was in rare form when we sat down in the dining room of his newly purchased London home. He wore red devil horns on his forehead and long red fake nails on his hands for part of our talk, and still managed to keep a straight face. The conversation turned serious, however, when I asked Sting if he felt there was a formula to the Police music.
In a sense, you see, it's a compliment. If people suspect you of having a formula, then by inference it means that whatever has gone into it works. The formula thing is what our detractors would like to sort of nail us with, you know, that we're just a product, we're just something that's been invented by some great puppet master. There is no puppet master involved with this. It's an accident of large proportions. The whole thing is an accident. Everything's an accident. The fact that the three of us were in a group together is an accident. Most groups come from the same town. They come from the same street, most groups, you know. The three of us are from widely different social backgrounds, widely different countries, you know. Stewart's an American. I'm from the northern tip of England. Andy's from the southern tip of England. We're different generations even. We have widely differing political views, views on life. We don't have that much in common except for music. Now that is a wonderful accident, because if you have a band made up of, you know, sort of amorphous creatures who all look the same and who all have the same ideas, then you get something that's not quite as volatile. That's what excites me about the group, really, is it's the potential for blowing up all the time. That appeals to me. You know, as I talk about the band breaking up. Yeah, it could happen tomorrow. But wouldn't it be awful and boring if it was going to go on forever and ever? I mean, that would be hell. It's not easy being in the Police for any of us. But ultimately, we seem to have the right chemistry that works.
Young teacher.
When you performed on this last tour, you looked like you were enjoying yourself on stage. You have also said to me, however, that there are some nights that you look at your watch. You did say that.
Yes, it's rare. I mean, that's a really rare instance of looking at my watch. It's some nights it's really bad. It's very subjectively bad. I don't think many of the audience know. They don't think it's bad. It doesn't sound bad to them. But I sometimes feel that we play beneath our capabilities, and that really annoys me and gets me very angry, very upset. I think because we're the type of band we are, where it's not prearranged, it's not choreographed to the last second, it's very kind of flexible in a sense. Therefore we run the risk of being banal sometimes, but we also take chances in order that maybe one out of 10 times we hit something that's really magical or spectacular.
And then what happens?
The universe comes together.
While you're on the stage, in that moment that you're out of control.
Yep, the whole of existence has a sudden instant cohesion and meaning. I expose myself a lot on stage because I feel that the audience appreciate that. They like to see someone on a tightrope. I don't really like rock music that much. I think it's too loud and too much, and I prefer our band when it's quiet, when we play very little, when it's sparse, which makes the noise and the loudness of it more exciting to me by contrast, you know. But you need that space because music is more than just noise, it's also silence.
Why do you encourage the audiences to sing along as much as you do?
That's the most pleasing thing for me as a songwriter, to sit in your front room and write a song and, you know, play it to the dog or your kid. And then maybe 9 months later you're playing in some city that's thousands of miles away from that home to kids you've never seen before, and they sing the song back to you, and that's really very awesome and frightening in a way, but very confirming and joyful. It's the best kind of applause you can get for what you've done.
Is it a diplomatic chore for you, being the main songwriter, writing most of the songs that obviously are hits and that are also well suited to your voice, to go into a studio and deal with two other musicians who also have egos and who come in with songs?
It's a very difficult thing to do in the studio. If someone brings a song in, including me, they spend a lot of time and a lot of energy, a lot of devotion has gone into producing or making a song. Someone turns around and says it's no good, that's tantamount to saying, you know, your wife's got a big nose, or...
Oh?
Yeah.
Oh, is that what it's tantamount
Well,
to?
it's like someone insulting the core of your being, if you like. I get very upset if somebody doesn't like one of my songs. It's not really a business for diplomacy, frankly. If something is good, then it screams from the rooftop that it's good. If something is not so good, that also is blatantly obvious. Often it's not obvious to the person who presented it, but once it's been through the grinder, and the group in this context is a grinder, then people are left with very few doubts where the song stands objectively. I would regard songwriting as perhaps what I do best. I don't think it's what Andy and Stewart do best. I think they're great musicians, rather than songwriters. They're better musicians than I am. But it's a different kind of skill, songwriting. I think my success as a songwriter is based on the ability to combine sort of reggae rhythms with romantic European songs of love or loneliness, whereas most reggae songs are about freedom and they're political songs. So joining apparently disparate elements is the process of creativity.
When we return, Sting will talk about how he feels about rock and roll stardom.
For all you do, these buds for you.
Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis.
Budweiser,
We're back on the inside track. I asked Sting how success had changed his life.
I don't live in a slum, and I don't wear rags, but I certainly don't. I would not what you call extravagant or flamboyant. I drive a Volkswagen. I have a little terraced house in London, in the nice part of town, but I don't have acres and acres of land, or I don't have anything I don't need. I am self-motivated. Therefore I feel I've got a good chance of being able to control it, not allowing it to get out of hand. Because it could. In my position, it could get out of hand. I could become obsessed with this idea of me being a rock star, a god, or whatever they call, sex symbol. People do believe these things that are set up for them. It's common.
How do you not let it get to you? I mean, you go on the road and people probably crawl out of the woodwork everywhere offering you anything. Everything can be done for you.
It doesn't get to me, though. It really doesn't. I realise the danger. And I can see it. And I'm very objective about it. People come backstage and say, God, that was great. That was the best thing I've ever seen. I don't care. It doesn't mean that much to me. I'm polite and grateful. Thanks. Glad you enjoyed the show, but I don't go home with a sort of crown on my head or imagine I'm the greatest thing since Mozart. No. That is really destructive. It's a very dangerous business. There's obvious pitfalls all over the place. Drugs, power complexes, ego gone crazy. But I think the lessons are that you don't even have to live them yourself. You just have to look at the people who've been in rock and roll and look at all the casualties. Lists and lists and lists of people who've fallen by the wayside, who've destroyed themselves. I'm not saying Jimi Hendrix shouldn't have lived the life he led, or Janis Joplin shouldn't have done this. I'm not being moralistic. I'm just saying that I'm presented with a set of alternatives. I can either be like them, or I can be like me. I want to survive this thing. I want to get outside of it. I want to have said at the end of it, well, I've been through that and I've learned from it and I controlled it and it was a test and I passed. I don't want to be a victim of rock and roll.
There's no politics.
Well, now, you say you don't like rock and roll music. You're not necessarily drawn to the lifestyle, whatever that is. You don't like probably a lot of the people. Why are you doing this?
What else would I do?
I don't know. What else had you considered doing? What else did you think you were suitable for?
Nothing really. As I said before, I always felt like a misfit, I worked in an office for a while. I worked as a bricklayer for a while. I worked as a bus conductor. And then I went to work as a school teacher. And, I learned from those experiences, but it wasn't exactly my niche in life. I found my niche. I found something that I'm actually perfectly suited to be, which is quite unique. There are very few people who could be me or fill my niche or be Sting, if you like, because I've engineered it that I'm irreplaceable in the little world that I live in, right? I'm a good singer. I can sing. I write songs. I have aspirations to becoming an actor or something in the wider context of entertainment or art or whatever you'd like to call it. And I do feel myself to be unique. Or at least there aren't many people who I would say I have that much in common with. I think I'm happier than most people in life. But I'm not satisfied with it. There is more. There has to be more.
What do you think it is?
We'll find out, won't we?
Well, now, when you started this whole thing, what did you think being at the top of the ladder would be like? Did you think it would be like this? Did you think you'd be happy and not feel like a misfit?
No. I don't really want to feel anything but a misfit. I enjoy that feeling. I think part of my power, if you like, is the fact that I am a misfit, that I am out of place.
In what context? You're talking about
every-
the straight establishment world?
Every
or
context you could imagine, I feel a misfit in. I can use it, you see, to comment better than someone who's actually so much in the flow of normal life. They can't actually see it. They can't actually see the trends or the patterns. That's why I can advocate what the hell I like. But whether or not you influence people for the better is up to them.
Just a castaway.
My thanks to Stewart Copeland, Andy Summers, and Sting for giving us an inside look at the police on the Inside Track.
We'll be right back with a word about next month's very special show.
Budweiser's known as the king of beers. Been #1 for years and years. This Bud's the one when you want to have fun, fun, fun. Bud's the king of beers. Been that way for years. I want a Bud, 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 Bud. This Bud's for you. And all these really groovy things we all like to do. Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis.
Next month, the Inside Track presents a special tribute, Lisa Robinson's conversation with John Lennon. It was one of the last in-depth interviews John did, and it's never been broadcast before. The Inside Track has been brought to you by Budweiser. For all you do, this Bud's for you. The Inside Track is a production of DIR Broadcasting. Executive producers Bob Myrowitz and Peter Kauf. Produced by John Platt. Engineered by Bruce Rains and Scott Kushner. I'm Tony Pigg. Thanks for listening.